If you've just seen my video where we photographed my Leatherman to get it all into focus, you'll have noticed I talked about the inconsistency of aperture and the flickering that can happen frame to frame. If you've ever had the misfortune of shooting something like e-commerce, where you're shooting all day, like f16, if you've ever had the misfortune of having to make a stop motion where you're shooting all day at f16, when you put all those images together, especially in a stop motion, you'll notice a flickering. And you're probably thinking, good God, what have I done wrong? What have I done to create this horrific flickering? Now, it's not your fault. It is an equipment technical fault. There are a few things that cause the flickering, and there are a few ways to solve it. And I'm going to go through all of them, and the last one we're going to go through is probably the one which most of you will be able to employ, but it's also probably the most risky. So, first and foremost, you need consistent light. And I don't think that this is the problem which most people are having. If you're using a flash or an LED in a dark room, you've got consistent light. You're fine. That is probably not causing that flickering frame to frame. Over the course of an entire day, it probably would do, but for a 10-minute stop motion, unless you've literally got cloud, blue sky, you're probably going to be okay. What's probably causing the flickering is your lens and is your aperture. Now, as I've mentioned before, aperture is not the science camera brands make you believe it to be. Just because it says f10 doesn't mean it's f10. It is somewhere near f10. When those aperture blades close and open again, it's real guesswork, but they're not as precise as you think. They don't just hit a stop point and happen to synchronize with the shutter firing. When you press the trigger here, the electronic bit in the lens gets told, go to f10, it throws those, the shutter throws itself. These are not professional tools for accuracy. These sorts of cameras here are kind of, yes, you can use them for professional work. Obviously, I use one for professional work, but they're not high-grade bits of kit. They're not scientific precision engineering. And that aperture is all over the place. If you have it at f10, it's probably anywhere from f8 to f13 frame to frame, and that is what causes the flickering. Now, on old cameras, we didn't have this problem, because on our old lenses, like this one over here, if you listen to this, you dial in the aperture on the lens, and once it's dialed in, those blades stay in place, and all that happens is the shutter fires. So there's none of this blades opening and closing, giving you all different exposures. That is why I use this type of system for my stills work and for my stop motion. If I'm doing composites, this makes sure that every single frame is exactly the same, especially when we're pairing it with the broncolor lights up above. This gives us great consistency, great accuracy, and is very easy to use for stop motion and composite work. And also, when you're shooting a big series, you don't want that third of a stop difference in exposure all over the place and you're having to fix it. This helps with that. And of course, the other one is having good quality lights, using broncolor lights. And even I've been using a Godox AD1200 recently that I was given by Pixapro. That also has great consistency. And I've used it a lot on stop motion and I've found it to be absolutely fine. I have used cheaper lights, which are like £200 to £500, not so much. But then you get what you pay for. Now, there is a cheat if you have this sort of lens here in order to get it to do what you want it to do. So, you have your camera set on your tripod. Now, this is a Canon, but it works with all brands. You set yourself to your f10, f16, whatever it may be, and get your camera settings sorted. Now, once you've got your aperture set, we have this button just here, which is the depth of field preview button. It'll be in a different place in each camera. Google where it is. When you press that down, it crunches the aperture blades into place, and they stay there. Now, this is where it gets a bit risky. You then hit your lens release button, and what you're aiming to do is detach the lens just enough that your readout here tells you the aperture is 0, 0 because the electrical connectors have disconnected, but not so much that your lens falls out. So it's a bit of a fine art. So here's our electrical connectors, and here they're on the lens. We want to put those in, depth of field preview, get the aperture right, press the button, and just enough until it says 0, 0 up here. You don't want to go so much that your lens is going to fall off. Obviously, there is a risk that your lens is going to come crashing down and smash on the floor. Maybe pop some pillows beneath it or a mattress perhaps. And then obviously this is now loose. Have it in place, and every frame, that aperture blade is now stuck in place. So the camera doesn't know what the aperture is. All you're telling it is have this shutter speed, have this ISO, fire away. Keep it in manual mode, don't have it in auto ISO, and this will solve your flickering problems. I hope this has been of use to you. If you've enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe. If you have any other questions, drop them in the comments below. And once a month, I reel off a load of videos like this, and I'll try and answer them for you. Bye-bye.